All right, before we begin now, let's have our prayer. Father in heaven, we just want to thank you for what's going to happen here this morning and what we can learn about things to be healthy, happy, and holy for heaven. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so we left off with the food pyramid. Stay closer to the bottom of the pyramid. That should be the biggest part of your diet, the fruits, the nuts, the grains, and the vegetables. As you work up, you need less protein and you need less calcium. And then the very top is, of course, the sugar and the oil. That's our favorite part, isn't it? And often people take the sugar and oil, and instead of keeping it at the top with minimum, they bring it down to the bottom. And that's why our bottoms are so big, is because we're eating too much sugar and oil in our diet, and we have to suffer the consequences. So we want to try to stay away from that. Obviously, organic food is probably the safest and the best, but sometimes it's a little bit expensive. But at least try to find stuff that has that little blue label that says non-GMO. So at least you're getting a step in the right direction and getting away from some of those foods. Because when stuff comes out of the factory, I've talked to several people who work in different food factories, and every one of them have told me I would never eat the food that comes from my factory because they know what goes on behind the scenes. And so if they know what's going on and they won't eat it, that makes me a little cautious of any factory food that comes out, because it's being mass produced, and sometimes they take shortcuts, and sometimes they do things to it to make it more palatable to yourself. Now, were we going to show the food thing first? Did you say that would be the easiest? We're going to show you the food flavoring video that 60 Minutes did on a broadcast, and I'm telling you, it was a shocker. I was happy that they did it, and now I incorporate it in my lecture.
As the Thanksgiving weekend comes to a close, you may feel as overstuffed as that turkey you ate. And if you're overweight, and the chances are you are, it's probably because you eat too much of the wrong stuff. Most of the wrong stuff we eat comes in a bottle, a can, or a box, food that's been processed. Much of that food has been flavored. The flavoring industry is the enabler of the food processing business, which depends on it to create a craving for everything from soda pop to chicken soup. It is Willy Wonka and his chocolate factory as a multi-billion-dollar industry, an industry cloaked in secrecy. But recently, Givaudan, the largest flavoring company in the world, allowed us in to see them work their magic.
The story will continue in a moment.
So definitely an aroma. The mandarin, fancy tangerine. Real mild though, not in your face.
These are super sniffers, super tasters.
And more bitter.
On the prowl, the special forces first responders to the call for the next best taste.
The mandarin notes are fantastic in this.
Yeah.
They're braving the wilds of a citrus grove in Riverside, California, where Jim Hassel, whose nose and palate are legendary, leads a Givaudan team on a taste safari. Big game hunters in search of the next great taste in soft drinks. Their inspiration, the greatest flavorist of them all, Mother Nature.
Seeing everything that's available really just drives the whole creative process.
Like an artist going to Rome or something.
Correct.
But the ultimate purpose is to sell more soft drinks or whatever.
That's what we're in the business of. Selling flavors.
Let's go sniffing. Our perception of taste is largely located in the nose, but described in the language of music.
Do you get like a tropical note, a little bit of papaya, potentially?
Yeah, cotton candy note.
Cotton candy a little bit.
They are plotting how to move the flavors they find in this grove to your supermarket shelf, and then on to your stomach.
I can see it in a sports drink. I can see it in a water, flavored water. And I also can see it in a twist on an orange carbonated beverage.
When they find something they like, they extract its flavor molecules from the fruit on the tree. Then back in the lab, they mimic Mother Nature's molecules with chemicals. Essentially what you do is you take whatever this smells like and copy it.
Right. Exactly.
And then I suppose you could, if you choose to, you could quote unquote improve on it.
Exactly.
Yes, we all the time.
The holy grail, a flavor so good you can't resist it.
In our fruit flavors, we're talking about we want, a burst in the beginning and maybe a finish that doesn't linger too much so that you want more of it.
And you don't want a long linger because you're not going to eat more of it if it lingers.
Ah, so it's going to be a quick fix, and then
Have more.
have more. But that suggests something else,
Exactly.
which is called addiction.
Exactly.
You're trying to create an addictive taste.
It's a good word.
Or something that they want to go back for again and again.
Food companies know that flavor is what makes repeat customers. So they commissioned Givaudan to create what they hope will be a mouth-watering taste. Givaudan may be the biggest multinational you've never heard of. The Swiss company employs almost 9,000 people in 45 countries, providing tastiness to just about every cuisine imaginable. There's a lot of secrecy involved in your profession, correct?
Our intellectual property are our formulas. Without that, we have nothing, so there's a lot of secrecy. You really don't want anyone to know.
My world is making things taste good.
Soda pop and chewing gum flavorist Michelle Hagan has helped Givaudan and the food companies make billions with her secret formulas.
I create thousands of flavors, so I need somewhere to put them. And I have a lot of flavors in here. So here are some oranges and tangerines.
750 flavors, orange, tangerine, mandarins.
Raspberry is one of my favorite. I can't even fit all my raspberries on here.
How different can raspberries be?
Oh, very different, very different. Oh yeah, you can make them jammy, you can make them sweet, you can make them floral, you can make them seedy. It's endless, really.
And the flavor ingredients might not have ever met a raspberry.
I have butyric acid artificial, and then I have butyric acid natural.
All flavors are combinations of chemicals. Artificial flavors are largely man-made. Natural flavors come from nature, but not necessarily from what the label implies. For example,
Strawberry creations.
strawberry and vanilla flavor can come from the gland in a beaver's backside.
So what we do is just manipulate them and create with them and give the impression of, the papaya or the strawberry.
Hagan is an illusionist. She's even created a flavor that mimics the taste and smell of an old oak tree.
To give whiskey a little bit more depth sometimes, a young whiskey.
Oh, to give the taste of the barrel it was supposed to have been aged in, correct?
Yes. Yeah, you can add some cask notes, some oak notes. Okay, here we go.
Hassel and Hagan let us in on the alchemy of inventing a new flavor. This one inspired by a Hong Kong kumquat that the team found not in Hong Kong, but back in Riverside. It's a process using hundreds of different notes until they've created a symphony of taste.
I mean, with a name like Hong Kong kumquat, you really have to have something going on, I think.
But I'm curious to see the carrot on top of the kumquat.
That is interesting. That is very interesting.
You get the citrus, but you have the carrot poking its head out,
Yeah, it's very complex.
but not overpowering.
That's really exciting. This is a home run.
There's no shortage of metaphors in the flavoring business. Givaudan goes to the ends of the earth scouting for new flavors. In Hong Kong, Givaudan convened their annual conclave of top chefs from restaurants around the world, demonstrate their latest creations. The goal, to turn those creations into new commercial flavors. The chefs mixed, chopped, mashed, steamed, sauteed, and smoked for a week to create irresistible cutting-edge cuisine. Hong Kong chef Alvin Leung didn't disappoint.
It makes you want to eat this again and again and again, okay? It's like sex, okay? You want to do it over and over again until you get a headache.
The Givaudan team didn't just taste the food, they sniffed, photographed, analyzed, and debated it. Then they distilled the best into flavor powders, applied them to beef and noodles, and voila, a frozen dinner.
This is our translation into a frozen ready meal that you could buy in the supermarket to really deliver a different eating experience.
Givaudan chef Stefan Strahler demonstrated how convincing these translations can be compared to the real thing.
We have here the whole lineup of some of the chicken flavors. So that's a roasted chicken flavor.
It sure is. It absolutely matches it. Givaudan makes flavors that match almost every kind of chicken imaginable. This is crusty, fatty chicken.
We just take a little skin here, and when you smell it that now, you get much more of those fatty, crusty notes. And when you smell it that flavor...
Yes, sure it is. Now, what is this? Is this actually chicken?
It can be, yes. A lot of what you have in front of you is the chicken that has been translated into a flavor.
Translated on a grand scale in the Givaudan plant in Kentucky.
This is a chicken flavor. As a liquid in the tank.
An endless stream of brown liquid, part chicken, part chemical, all flavor.
This is the chicken we looked at in the tank right here.
Oh.
So this is the chicken in the hose.
Chicken in the hose, okay.
Chicken in the hose, right. We'll stretch this hose out and we'll actually load the liquid into these individual trays. It gets vacuum dried in the oven and it comes out in a dry cake form. We'll grind that into a fine powder.
Chicken, just like Grandma used to make. It's used in soups, stews, sausage, noodle, and rice dishes. Chicken by the ton. Chicken for every taste. Our old friend Krusty Fatty. Chicken for vegetarians. Yes, chicken without chickens. Ground zero for the food and flavor industry is the supermarket. Givaudan won't reveal which brands contain their flavors, but in this aisle, almost every product on the shelves has been enhanced artificially or with so-called natural flavors. And not only that, virtually everything edible in a package, in a jar, in a can, is intensified with either fat, sugar, or salt, or all three of those little devils.
We're eating fat on sugar on fat with flavor. And much of what we're eating with these flavors, you have to ask yourself, is it really food?
Dr. David Kessler is the former head of the FDA. He is Dr. No. He's bent on getting America to kick its bad habits.
We're living in a food carnival. These flavors are so stimulating. They hijack our brain.
Kessler believes flavorists are accomplices, the hired guns of the food industry.
They make food super palatable.
What's wrong with that? Don't we want the richness of good taste?
Of course, food has to be pleasurable. It has to be desirable. But look around, Morley. Look around this country, and what do you see? Ask the rest of the world how they view Americans, and they will say, we don't want to look like them.
Are you saying that the food industry and the flavoring industry together are trying to make and succeeded in making us addicted?
Did the industry do this deliberately? No. It learned what stimulates. It learned what people want.
There's no question we're trying to create an irresistibility and a memorability. I think, though, that there's then a leap to get to that leads to overconsumption.
Bob Pellegrino is Givaudan's flavor czar as Vice President of Global Strategy and Business Development. Your critics say, but you provide the means to seduce people into eating too much salt, too much fat, too much sugar, and responsible partly for the obesity in this country.
Our business is to make taste experiences pleasurable ones. So I don't think that the flavors create an overeating problem. I think that's a different issue.
But is it a different issue? Because surely what your clients want, the food industry wants, is to provide the kind of flavor that will make people want more.
I don't think it's creating a desire for moreness as well as it's a desire for memorability so that people will repeat the purchases of the product and enjoy them.
But given the obesity epidemic, the food industry is beginning to respond to pressure for lessness, if there is such a word, of fat, salt, and sugar. And that's opening up a whole new business opportunity and another challenge for these alchemists of flavor.
Everyone is working on health and wellness. How can you get a consumable, acceptable product that's better for you? And the challenge now is how do you make them taste good?
Not enough.
So when you lower the salt, what can we put in that will make it taste like it did without salt? When you lower the sugar, how can you make it taste sweeter without adding calories? So it's a whole new world that didn't even exist 10 years ago. But the consumers are interesting. As much as they want to be healthy, right? If it's not as sweet, I don't want it.
People are still going for the tried and true, heavy on sugar, heavy on salt, heavy on fat.
So I guess the real question is obesity going down? And I guess the answer would be no.
But that just gives you an idea. I want you to be sure you caught what they said at the very beginning there. 60 Minutes said it looks like you're trying to get them what? Addicted. And that man actually said out of his mouth, that's a good word. Addiction is never a good word. When you're addicted to something, it has control of you. You have lost your power of choice. You've surrendered it to the addiction, whatever that is. For him to have the audacity to say the word addiction is a good word, that is unbelievable to me. This is a corporate executive saying, we're trying to get them addicted to our products. There you go. You're being manipulated. Watch that label. I buy as few things as possible with labels on it because I don't know what's in there. Just like they said from that strawberry flavoring, what did that natural flavor come from? The backside of a beaver. That is an unclean animal. So you have unclean strawberry jam. Didn't even know it, did you? You were eating the backside of a beaver. That's what created the flavor that you liked. They found it. So that was such a big eye-opener to me. I thought, man, we just got to stay away from these labels and what they're doing. All right. What about using artificial sugar? You know, they've got all this aspartame and NutraSweet, and they keep changing the names so you don't know which one it is. But UC Davis Medical Center did some testing on this. Your body is not programmed to process and understand artificial things. It only understands what it perceives. So if I take a bite of an apple, my taste buds taste sugar, and they immediately tell the brain, sugar's coming down. And before you can swallow that apple, there is insulin waiting there for it. This is how brilliant and fast this stuff is. Split-second timing. So the insulin is there so you don't go into an insulin shock from the apple because it's there waiting. But when you take NutraSweet or an artificial flavoring, the tongue tells the brain, sugar's coming. Brain tells the pancreas, produce the insulin, sugar's coming. You swallow, and there's no sugar. Now, the body goes into panic mode. There's something in here that I don't know what it is. And so it tells the brain, there's no sugar down here. Brain goes back to the tongue, and he says, there's no sugar down there. Tongue says, try again. I tasted sugar. It's down there somewhere. Brain goes back down to the stomach. Where's the sugar? Stomach says, I live down here. There is no sugar anywhere to be found. So your brain goes into trauma because it now realizes that it has miscoded something and it doesn't know what's inside. Because the tongue says one thing, but the stomach says, no, that's not what it is. Tongue says, yes, it is. No, it's not. Stress, depression moves in because your body says, I don't know what this is. Do you see how this works? It's not programmed to understand NutraSweet or aspartame. It's programmed to understand grapes, bananas, apples. But the other stuff, it doesn't know what to do with it. It doesn't know how to react to it. And so you're stressing your body on the inside. which means your mind is going to be affected. This all fits together. And the more you understand this, the more you're going to be able to set yourself free. Because when you keep playing games with your brain, pretty soon drugs is an option. Pretty soon anger and violence is an option because your brain is out of whack. And you caused it by not doing your homework, by not finding out what you're doing to the system. So that's why it's very, very careful. You need to be careful about doing this. I believe the Bible says, and it's clear, knowledge is power. It gives you power over these things. So you're not being duped. You're not being tricked. And for me, my rule is, when in doubt, leave it out. People say, what about this? Is this okay? Is this okay? I said, I don't know enough about it. And so when in doubt, I just leave it out. I play it safe. I don't have to worry about that banana I'm looking at or those carrots. I don't worry about that because I know what it is. And so does my body, and it knows how to process it and eliminate it. But some of this other stuff, we have a problem. And so we want to make sure that we're doing things right. If you eat meat, you shouldn't cook it at a high temperature because that makes it carcinogenic, all right? If you're going to eat chicken, take the skin off the chicken. That's the worst part of the chicken. If you're going to eat pork, throw it away. There's nothing redeeming about that. So, vinegar. When you put vinegar inside your human body, it strips the mucus lining in your intestinal tract. It destroys the vitamin C in your body. You can use it on the outside as an astringent, but once you put it inside, that's what they offered Jesus on the cross. And he said no. And vinegar, the devil was busy putting it in a lot of our food. Almost all your condiments have vinegar in it. Ketchup, mayonnaise, mustard, pickles. Vinegar is everywhere. I don't think an American goes by a day without getting vinegar inside their body. And so I'm very careful about there are pickles you can buy. The brand that I'm aware of is called Bubba's, and it's made with lemon, no vinegar. It's a little pricey, but there's no vinegar in it. And I know that a lot of Adventists are using this Vegenaise. It's a step in the right direction. At least there's no chicken droppings in the Vegenaise because there's no eggs. But there's always vinegar and mustard, and those are not good for the body. So you can't just say, oh, this is what I should be eating now. No, keep reading the label. Vinegar, it's going to destroy the vitamin C, going to strip the mucus lining in your intestinal tract. When wine goes bad, what does it turn to? Vinegar. It's the decomposition process beyond alcohol is vinegar. So it's not to be taken internally. You might use it for a medicinal purpose, like ginger and cayenne, but ginger and cayenne should not make up the regular part of your diet because they're irritants inside here. Black pepper is one of the worst. And you know it's on every dining table in every restaurant in America. Salt and pepper, isn't it? Pepper has an oil in it called eugenol oil. If you take black pepper and you put it on your cut, what do you think it's going to feel like? It's going to hurt. That's right, it's going to burn. Well, they know that when people take black pepper with the fiber optic cameras, they can see the little blood vessels burst and bleed inside your digestive tract because of the eugenol oil that's in that black pepper. And white pepper isn't innocent. It's still pepper. It's going to bleed and burst your blood vessels inside your digestive tract. So you just got to be aware of this stuff. And people use it all the time. And, I went to your potluck yesterday, and someone was coaching me through, there's no dairy here, but I took a bite of something, and boy, I could taste the black pepper. And that was it. I threw it away. I hate to throw food away, but there was nothing else I could do. But I could taste the black pepper. They didn't realize that the black pepper got eugenol oil in it. You got to find out what these products are made of. Is that good for me or is it not? And black pepper absolutely is on the do not list. But you get to make your choice. My aunt, she loved pepper. She would take the lid off at the restaurant and she would shake it over her food. Well, that's because she was a cigarette smoker and her taste buds were shot. And so you didn't want to sit near her at a dinner because that pepper would go up your nose. I said, Annie Kay, come on, don't do that. So another thing about your taste buds, they change. Every 30 days, you have new taste buds coming to the surface. They work up. Most people's taste buds are ruined. I look at taste buds as a key, and they can unlock the flavor in the food. But if that key is bent, is it going to be able to unlock the flavor? No. So the food starts tasting bland. So what do? You put ketchup on it, you put mustard on it, you put mayonnaise on it, you put pepper on it, you just keep chocolate cheese, grease, and spice. You just load it on there so that you can taste. You're not eating food anymore. You're eating the additives. You don't know what food tastes like because your taste buds are shot. They're no good. So give it 30 days. Let clean, fresh taste buds come out. You will be amazed at the explosion of flavor that's in God's food. People have been to my house and they say, aren't you going to put any mayonnaise on that? I said, no, I like food. And they said, well, do you have any ketchup? I said, there's no ketchup in this house. Don't you have any? I said, go look. You won't have to ask so many questions. Open the cupboards, amazing. I was in a prison in California. I don't know if you're aware of this, but an Adventist, Terry Moreland, used to own a prison called Maranatha in California. And they asked me to come and take a look. And so I did. And Terry gave me free access to the entire prison. Anywhere I wanted to go, the guards had to take me. First thing I did when I got there is I said, I want to see the kitchen. And they said, okay. Because the whole idea of Terry getting this prison going was he wanted to get these people on a diet with no excitotoxins in it and no stimulants in it so that they could calm down and be free from the drugs and the alcohol that brought them there. So he changed all this stuff around, and when he did, he asked me to go ahead and go in there, and boy, I had them open up all the cupboards. I had them open up the refrigerator. I looked for everything. That prison was as clean as my own house. And I said, Terry, you've done your homework. There's no cocoa to be drunk here. There's no coffee to be drunk here. There's no irritating spices here. There's no stimulants, no excitotoxins. This is as clean as my place. And that's the way it should be. And I spent a week there at that prison talking to the inmates. It is the highest success rate prison of no recidivism. In other words, they don't come back to prison. The vast majority of the inmates who go to, there is a waiting list to get into that prison. It is. Because the word is out among the inmates. You want to go out and stay out, you go to the Adventist prison in California. And they will keep you out. But there's no television allowed. You have to read. They have a big exercise area, and that's a requirement every day. They have to exercise. What they have to drink is plenty of water. They'll give them juice once in a while, but that's it. And I was really impressed. I said, Terry, you done good. You done good. He was supposed to open one here in Arizona, I was told, but I hadn't heard any more about that, if the one in Arizona opened up or not. And I think the one in California had to close because the state of California was embarrassed that their prisoners weren't going back to prison, and theirs were, and the Adventist ones weren't going back to prison. A little embarrassing. And so they figured out a way of taxing them or something like that, so Terry didn't have the money to continue to run it. But there are videos I used to show of these inmates who were there. Said, you know, I've been locked up 5 times, I've been locked up 6 times, 7 times, but when I went to the Maranatha prison for the Adventist, I never went back again. Never went, because I got my mind relaxed, got it clear, got it calm, my nervous system. I didn't need any more stimulants because I was calm. So if you have problems, people having problems, and we're going to be talking about that, about bad habits, you've got to stay away from the foods that pull the trigger. Because that gun is in you and it's loaded, and Satan knows it. And he's going to create things to pull that trigger to blow your mind. And it works. It works. And it's all because we don't know what we're doing. We're ignorant. So, please don't fall into that trap. Instead of vinegar, you'll notice in my recipes, you can use lemon, lime, or pineapple juice when it ever calls for vinegar. Whatever recipe calls, lemon, lime, or pineapple juice is a great substitute, all right? So feel free to use one of those products. When I make my salad dressing, I make my salad dressing on Sunday morning. Every Sunday morning, that's salad dressing. I make a blender full, and then I don't have to bother with it all week because it's a week's worth. And every week I make a different one. I look into, I think I'll put tomatoes in this time, maybe some avocados. I'll put some lime in this time. Next week, I'm going to put some tofu in. I'm going to put some cashews in it. I'm going to blend it up. And it tastes different every week. Why? Because the body likes new things and variety. It doesn't like, I know people, they say, every morning I eat oatmeals and raisins. And I said, is that it? They said, yep, every morning. Man, by the fourth morning, I said, I need something else. I need something else. So does your body. Because one grain doesn't provide all the nutrients you need. You need to use oats, you need to use rye, you need to use barley, you need to use buckwheat. Stir them up, mix them up, have a variety, because they all have their special blessings available to you. And the body likes to have a variety of flavors, so the food isn't boring. Keep that in mind. All right, remember, the darker the color, the more nutrient dense it is. So we need to spend some time now talking about, got one more thing to do here. We didn't finish. By the way, what I do when I was a brand new Adventist especially, I would pull into the parking lot of the grocery store. I would bow my head right there on the steering wheel. And I would pray before I entered that store, God, don't let me buy anything that I would be ashamed to give to Jesus were he to come to my house tonight. And when I ask him to bless my food, he comes to my house. And he looks at that plate. And I don't want him to say, what's that? I want you to know what this is, because I want to eat your food. We're not going to eat the monkey meat and all of this stuff. It's okay for a transition, the phony baloney and all these kinds of things. But I'm telling you, it's not good to eat all the time. Some of that has a lot of salt in it. Some of it has monosodium glutamate in it. The way they make it chewy is they put it into a special machine called an extruder machine. And it spins around in this machine so that the phony hot dogs and stuff, they can chewy. Yeah. Do you know if they ran that machine just a little bit longer, that hot dog would turn to plastic? That's what you're eating. So I don't like to eat it. Once in a while, a 4th of July picnic or something, I may eat it, but I see it camp meeting, people buying it by the cases. And I'm going to say, what's your house number? I'm not going to your place to eat. I'm not going to your tent to have lunch. Yeah, that stuff, I'm going to be honest with you, it gives me gas. I mean, I could put Chevron out of business. I got more gas than they do. That stuff, I can't keep my covers on at night. So I don't like eating that stuff, because it's just, my body's saying, what are you trying to do? So that tells you something. If it's giving you gas, you got to either chew slower, you got to eat a better combination, or just throw it out. Because your body is saying, I don't like this in here. I'm going to make trouble. I'm going to embarrass you if I have to, but you're going to stop eating this stuff. So, all right. When you see somebody else doing something that maybe not best, this is a very delicate thing to do. It's best, when I go to somebody's house, I do not discuss diet. I said, we can talk about exercise, we can talk about water, we can talk about rest. I will not discuss food at the dinner table because I don't want to embarrass my host. And generally, there's stuff on that table that probably shouldn't be there. And then they've always got, especially if I'm the visiting speaker, a special dessert. And so what I do is I look for something on the table that I really like, and she'll say, well, it's time for dessert. And I'm saying, you know what? This asparagus is so good. Do you mind if I have more of that for my dessert? I do. Yeah. So they go, you want asparagus for dessert? And I said, yeah. So you just have to be careful. I can tell you some more stories. So let's talk about fasting. When you fast, you're putting your brain into so much control over the body. It's amazing. So the idea with fasting is that the body is being told by the brain, this is what you're going to have. And that empowers you. So if you've never fasted before, you may have to do it gently. Like maybe the first time you fast, you can go on a fruit fast, where that's all you eat is fruit. Fruit processes and eliminates quickly, which means the body always likes to stay busy. So if there's no food to process or eliminate, it says, well, let's start cleaning house. And it lifts up the carpet. Let's start cleaning. Sometimes during a fast, you can become sick. That means you need to stop immediately and eat something because you are too toxic yet. You've got to take it easier on your fast. Maybe you only should take a 5-hour fast instead of a 1-day fast. But during your fast, jump your water drinking to 12 to 15 glasses. So you've got plenty of fluid to flush out the toxins that you've had in your body all these years. So try a fruit fast. And if you did fine, you're not getting sick at all, then try a juice fast. Now there's no solid for the body to process, is there? It's all liquid. And so it goes out quickly. Now it has more time to do what? Clean house, get into those corners, take care of things. And then ultimately, you'd like to get to the point where you're at a water fast, where that's all you do. And I do that every week. 24 hours, I do nothing but water. And then if an emergency comes up or God impresses me, I may fast for several more days, depending upon what God asks me to do. But I'll tell you something that's really nice, is usually by the second day of your fast, your appetite gland just shuts down and you're not hungry. On the third day of my fast, I don't want anything to eat. And I have to force myself to eat after a long fast because I'm not hungry. So it's the first day or two that's a little, I want an apple. Please, can I have a banana sandwich or something like that? That's okay because you're not used to it. But it's just natural for me. I told you my usual eating times is 9 o'clock in the morning and 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So all I have to do to fast 24 hours is just to get breakfast Sabbath morning. Because from Friday at 4 o'clock to Saturday at 4 o'clock is 24 hours, isn't it? Yeah, so I just skip one meal and I fasted 24 hours. That's how simple I've made life for my body. And I want my body to have a simple way of doing things. So, let's try this. There we go. Fruit fast, juice, and then ultimately the water fast. Now, if you're hypoglycemic, diabetic, or you have some medical problems, check with your doctor. But remember what I told you at the beginning of this seminar. Be sure your doctor is reading the new books and not the old books. You should know names like T. Colin Campbell, Caldwell Esselstyn. If he doesn't know those names, leave immediately. Do not discuss, do not debate, just walk out. He doesn't know these people. These people know what's going on because they're on the cutting edge of this information. So, fasting, we want to get that down. Go shopping, grocery shopping, by the way, on a full stomach. Well, after you eat, that's a good time to go shopping. Because if you go hungry, Alpo looks good. All right? So you go eating on a full stomach. That makes it work a lot better. When I was in Romania, I love Romania. You know, the Romanian people, they're Italians. Did you know that? Why do you think it's called Romania? They're from Rome, Italy. And it's called Romania. And I just love the Romanian people. I could tell you stories till midnight of things that happened in Romania. We were on national television in Romania. I was in the area where they were dropping bombs. It was just, yeah, when you're a missionary, you have quite a rich life. So anyway, I've been doing some seminars, and this one pastor, he was my favorite pastor. He's very dear to my heart. He said, Paul, please come to my church and do a seminar. I said, I will jump at the chance. So he told his wife, Paul's going to be coming. She goes, oh no, what do I make for him? I don't know what to make for him. I don't know how to cook. And he said, well, just call the other wives of the pastors and ask them what they fed him, you know? And she said, okay, but I'm really nervous. I want him to be happy. I want to please him. And he says, just relax. Paul eats really simple, just really simple. And don't make any desserts because generally he won't eat a dessert. And I don't, unless I make it. That's good. So anyway, I got over there, and I don't know if you've been to Europe very often, but quite often when the wife serves the meal, she sits on the chair and she watches. She doesn't eat with them. And that used to really bother me. I would say, prejedice, come join us. No, because her job is to make sure all the plates are full, all the bowls are full, everything is taken care of. She does not eat. She eats after. And so that always really bothered me. I didn't like that, but that's just the way they do it, and so they can't. Anyway, after about 3 or 4 days, he asked his wife, he said, well, what's it like cooking for Paul? She goes, oh, he's the easiest guy in the world to cook for. He said, well, didn't they tell you that? She said, yes. He says, so how is it? She says, with Paul, you just wash it and throw it at him. I eat really simple. Yes. The conference president went with me because he was my translator in which country? I think it was Romania. Anyway, he said, I'm gonna go with you because I'm gonna be your shadow. I'm gonna do everything you do. I'm gonna exercise with you. I'm gonna go to bed when you go to bed. I'm gonna get up. He says, I just wanna be a week with you to see what it's like. I said, okay. So we were doing all that stuff, and we were staying with a well-to-do family. And he told her, don't make any desserts for Paul. And she says, oh, well, we're gonna take good care of our American guests. And so she would go to this special store and buy this amazing monster creation of a dessert, And the first night, she put it down on the table, and the pastor went, yeah. And I'm going, yeah. And so he goes, we're not going to eat this? And I said, no. And he goes, not even a little? I said, you can have mine. He goes, nope, you're not going to eat it. I'm not going to eat it. I'm going to do exactly what you do for a whole week. So she came in and she goes, is there anything wrong with the dessert? And he said, remember I mentioned to you, don't bring any desserts to Paul because Paul doesn't eat desserts. She goes, do you know what this is? He goes, yes. He said, thank you very much. You and your husband enjoy it. The next night she brought another monster dessert. I don't know where she finds these. And granted, it looked kind of fun. It had strawberries on it and had kiwis on it, but it had cream cheese on the bottom. Or it was chocolate on top. And I looked at that and I said, tell her thank you so much, but really, I don't eat desserts, especially when it comes from a bakery because they have no rules there. So by the third day, she finally gave up. She quit buying these expensive exotic desserts. She figured out, boy, I can't tempt this guy. He's not going to go for it. So anyway, pray when you go to the grocery store if you're having struggles and ask God to help you. I would actually get my cart and I would put my guardian angel in the cart. It's okay, you sit there. You watch me what I put in this cart, and if you push back, it goes back on the shelf. So what you think? What you thinking? How about this? It's great. I know I talk about you a lot, but you're so cool. Anyway, you need to move on to saying, if I eat this way, can I really be strong and healthy? And the answer is unequivocally, absolutely yes. You will be your strongest, your mind will be the clearest, and your soul will be thriving in an environment that you created for it, that God wants you to do. So, when it comes to athletics, some of you may not be aware of this. Arnold Schwarzenegger created a movie called Game Changers. How many of you have heard of that? Yeah, it needs to be edited because some of the language is a little colorful. But anyway, he's showing all these closet vegetarians who are Olympic athletes people aren't aware of. All these champion all-star athletes, they are plant-based because they know that's how they get their performance. That's how they get their success. So, some of them, Sixto Linares, he won the double Ironman competition as a vegetarian. Paavo Nurme, he's known as the Flying Finn. He's from Finland. 12 Olympic medals. First time in Olympic history. He's known as the Flying Finn. Paavo, that's Paul. And then Bill Pearl, I actually stopped by his place. He lived not too far from me in Oregon. Bill Pearl was 4 times Mr. Universe. I stopped by, he was on tour, so I wasn't able to talk with him, but I wanted to sit down and talk with him for a while. But he's a vegetarian. Marine Captain Alan Jones is all over the Guinness World Book of Records. You can see here, some of his records are, he did 43,000 jump ropes in 5 hours. He lifted a 75-pound barbell 1,600 times in 19 hours, swam 68 miles nonstop, did 51,000 sit-ups in 76 hours. Somebody better get that guy a hamburger. He needs some strength. Yeah. Dave Scott, you've heard of the Ironman competition held once a year in Hawaii? I've actually been at the hotel where it starts. It wasn't the Olympic time, but people told me this is where the Ironman starts. And so I had to get a picture of that hotel where they're all there from all over the world trying to win that coveted title of Ironman. And Dave Scott was the first man to win Ironman 6 times. And they asked Dave, how'd you win Ironman 6 times? Nobody else has done that. And he says, yeah, I'm a vegetarian. And they go, yeah, but how'd you do it? He goes, I'm a vegetarian. Those meatheads, you see, they couldn't get it. Well, what do you know? Mark Allen was listening to Dave Scott, and he goes, vegetarian? Guess what I'm going to be? And guess who the next person to win Ironman 6 times? Mark Allen. Both of these guys, 6-man, that's them running together, Mark Allen and Dave Scott in the competition. So it was really quite a testimony. Now, somebody told me something about the World Senior Games. And I said, what is that? They said, it's just like the Olympics, except you have to be 50 years or older to participate. And I said, wow, that sounds really interesting. I want to go check it out. Where's it going to be at? It said it's going to be in St. George, Utah. So I flew into Las Vegas and got a car and went up to St. George to check out. I called it a prune race. I said, there'll probably be about 200 or 300 athletes and, maybe a couple of hundred people in the stadiums and so on. When I got there, was I shocked. There were 25,000 spectators in the stadium and over 1,400 athletes from over 40 different countries. Some of these were Olympians when they were in their 20s. And now that they're 50, they've come back to get some more medals. And so I went there, and there I am with what they call the Royal Court of the World Senior Games. Joe Namath was there, Helen Reddy there, a lot of celebrities who are over 50 going on to see their peers in these competitions. They had marching bands, and it was really a very exciting event. And I just went as a professional observer to see what was going on. I thought maybe they would like a lecture or something like that to help these athletes improve themselves. And so I was watching them and observing. I went into the cafeteria, and I was watching what they were eating, and it was bacon and pancakes and fried eggs. And I thought, man, I think I can beat these guys because I know what's going on inside their body. Their red blood cells that carry oxygen. When you eat that kind of a diet, you know what happens to those blood cells? They stick together. Can they carry oxygen? It's impossible, which means your oxygen is going to drop at least 20%. And if their oxygen drops 20%, I can whoop you. And so I went to register. This is the Parade of Nations for the games. And, we were all down in a dugout. I did sign up for 2 races, the 5-kilometer race and the 1,500-meter race. And they said, Mr. Volk, are you trained? Are you ready for this? I said, no, I just flew in. And they said, you're just going to get disqualified. You're throwing away money. I said, I can beat sausage and pancakes. And so, because I was one of the new guys, they said, Paul, we want you to carry the American flag out on the stadium with the American team. Of course, we were one of the last because they were all alphabetical. Start out with, I guess, Argentina, and then get clear down to the United States. So you'd hear them going out, and of course the Argentinians would yell for them, and the Russians would yell for the Russians, and the Spaniards for the Spanish, and so on. And we were all lining up, getting closer and closer to the opening. And finally they said, the United States of America. And we came out of that dugout, and I was carrying Old Glory, and those people leaped to their feet, screaming and yelling, "Go USA! Go USA!" And I froze. I never had 25,000 people screaming at me. And I stood there, and they were all piling up behind me, and they said, Paul, get going, you got the flag. And so I said, I'm going. So we marched around the whole stadium carrying our flags, and then they broke off into the different races and the different events. And as I said, I was in the 5-kilometer race and the 1,500-meter race. And my buddy, my roommate Dane, he was there with me, taking off. And boy, he was like a cheerleader, man. He was screaming his head off every time I'd lap around him. Come on, you got it, Paul, you got it. You're ahead, go, I just keep pushing ahead. And there I am, actually. Does this show it? Yeah, there I am, right there in the first lineup. And as I lined up, those guys all looked at me, and they looked at my shoes, street shoes. You know, they got these $3,000 jet-propelled flashing light, you know. They're all lined up, and they look at me like, really? Come on. And I thought, hey, boys, you take a good look at this, because that's all you're going to see when that gun goes off. So, the 2 races, that was one of my numbers, 159 for the 5 kilometer, 1,500 meter races. And when I was in the race, I said, God, if you will get me a medal, I will use these to get into the high schools and the universities. And so I silver medaled in both races that I entered, 5 kilometer and 1,500 meter races. And the judges said, how did you do that? You just walked in off the street. You had no training. You're number 2 in the world. And I said, I know, I'm a vegan. They said, yeah, but how did you do it? I said, okay, meathead, let's take this a step at a time. The same guy from New York beat me. And the one thing I didn't ask, and I wished I had, were you an Olympic athlete in your 20s? Because that would be kind of a nice feeling that I beat an Olympic athlete on a vegan diet. So this is my key to get into the universities and the high schools. I don't call the principal or the president anymore. It takes too long. I call the football coach and the basketball coach. And as soon as I tell them I'm a silver medalist, the next thing they say is, when can you get here? And when I get there, I also talk to them about drugs and alcohol and sex. Their 3 favorite subjects. I'm telling you this not because I'm special. I'm not. But God is. And His program really works. Now that year that I arrived, God's timing, they had a new machine called a bioscan. Just came out that year. Brand new. Cost $7 million to develop this machine. And it looks like a projector. And you put your hand over the lens, and a blue laser light goes into your skin, and it gathers data from your skin. Now, I was a little leery about laser light, so I watched a couple of people go ahead of me, and if they jumped, I wasn't going to do it. But you can't feel it at all. And, you know, a blood test, when they do that, is only going to be telling what's going on the last 48 hours. That's why they usually like to have you fast before you take a blood test, because they don't want to measure the vegetables that are in you. They want to measure your blood. Well, this gets 6 months of information from your skin. And so when you take this, they give you your results. If you score under 10,000, you have a weak antioxidant defense. In other words, your immune system is shot. You need to see a doctor immediately. If your score is 10 to 20, 10 to 17,000, it's marginal. You're just getting by. You're not eating what you should be eating. Your immune system isn't there. If you score 17 to 25, you're average. You know what average means? You're going to get 3 or 4 colds and viruses and flus a year. And we know what's going on with these viruses, don't we? You better get it up there. If you score over 25,000, you're optimum. You're free to go. You're good. I said, what was my score? Well, you see the result. My score was 34,000. And they said, we have to ask you a question. What's that? Are you a vegetarian? I said, well, what makes you think to ask me a question like that? And they said, because we've given this test to thousands of people already, and only the vegetarians can break the 25,000 barrier. And I said, well, you just found another one. Well, about 3 years later, I was lecturing in Los Angeles, and I was staying at a home of some people who bought one of these machines so that they could test people. They do it to make money because they show you that you're anemic and you need to buy these vitamins, lotions, potions, and pills. And so anyway, I was staying with them, and they said, Paul, have you done anything different when you took this test 3 years ago? I said, yes, I'm eating a lot more raw. My diet is over 50% raw, and I'm eating a lot more organic. And I said, well, why don't we test you again to see if that's helping or what it's doing? I said, yeah, let's find out what it's doing. And so I took the test again, and this is the new printout that they have. It's in color now, and it's real fancy. And if you're down in the red zone, you're anemic, go to the doctor, you're in trouble. If you're up here in the blue area, you've done really good. And I said, well, how did I do? And they said, well, we're not really sure. And I said, why don't you know? And they said, because the machine only goes up to 59,000 and you went off the machine. Your immune system is so high, we can't even measure it. And that's what I'm looking for, because when we go through the time of trouble, I want to be one of those who can help people, and I can't help people if I'm sick. I want to have all the health that I can to help as many people as I can, going, because these people are going to be desperate during the time of trouble. And they're going to be listening to those three angels' messages when you talk to them and help them. So I was thrilled when I saw the last result of that test. So when the mosquitoes take my blood, they can beat up the hornets and the wasps. And yes. Again, I'm telling you this not because I'm special. I'm telling you this because it works. While I was lecturing in Loma Linda, this fluffy doctor didn't like my presentation. And he said, I'd like you to come down to my clinic. I'd like to do a blood panel on you. And I said, sure. He wanted to find something wrong. He took 3 samples of blood. I said, why are you taking 3 for a blood panel? He said, I'm going to send 2 of these to 2 other clinics that have more intense equipment. In other words, I'm going to find somebody who can bust you. You've either got too much of something in you or too little. Both are bad, you know that. Especially AED and K. Those vitamins are called fat-soluble vitamins. And if you get too much AED or K, you're in trouble. You don't get too much of that. So he took the 3 blood panels and he brought back the results. And I said, well, how did I score? And he said, perfect. You can see there's only one word on my chart. No word excess or too little. Absolutely perfect. Tested it. And I said, so you mean a plant-based diet works? And he goes, well, yeah, apparently in this case. Said the fluffy doctor. Anyway, yes. Ecclesiastes, wisest man who ever lived, said, blessed are you, O land, whose king is of noble birth, whose princes eat at a proper time. Did you catch that? No, it's one morning you don't have breakfast at 7, the next morning you have it at 8:30, the next morning you have it at 6. You eat at the proper time. The body thrives on a schedule. It likes to eat at the same time. It likes to exercise at the same time. It likes to go to bed at the same time. You know what happens to a baby when you get him off schedule, don't you? Yeah, he's going to let you know right away. I'm supposed to be eating now. I'm supposed to be taking my nap now. They're very vocal about that. So, eat at the proper time. And what does it say? Eat for strength and not for drunkenness. When I saw that, I said, Solomon, you got that kind of wrong, didn't you? I don't eat to get drunk. I drink to get drunk. Do you know what? You actually eat to get drunk. Ellen White says many parents have prepared their children to be drunkards at the dinner table. Not the nightclub, not the bar. It's at the dinner table. That's where you prepared your child to be a drunkard, to be a drug abuser. Is the food that you gave that child was so full of stimulants and excitotoxins. Once you push that stimulating button, the body wants more. And as it gets older, it's got to get stronger. And we wonder why our kids are sexually active, why they're violent and aggressive, disrespectful, non-compliant. It's because they are so jacked up with the excitotoxins that are in their food, they can't control themselves. That's right, they can't control themselves because they're being controlled. They're being controlled by the food they eat. And that's why she said many parents have, and you know the parents will say, how could you do this? And if the kids were smart enough, they'd say, you ought to know, you set me up. You set me up at the dinner table. That's where it started. So, they decided, we're going to run a test on this with lab rats. Poor little rats. They put hundreds of rats in a giant cage. At one end of the cage was a beaker of only water. At the other end of the cage, they added just 10% alcohol to the water. When the rats were released in the cage and they went over and tried this, they wouldn't drink it. Animals don't drink alcohol. Did you know that? They don't drink alcohol. They know better. And so the experiment began. They took the normal rat chow that they eat and they changed it to the standard American diet. It's called SAD, Standard American Diet. And in this diet, they put in typical American food. They ground it up into pellets and served it to the rats. Inside this was hot dog with mustard and pickle relish, full of excitotoxins, spaghetti with meatballs, green beans, and salad. They had to give them some live food or the experiment would have quit very quickly. They would have died. French bread, which is white bread, cake, soda, coffee, candy bars. Ground it up, fed it to the test rats. In a short period of time, all of the rats were only drinking the 10% alcohol. They didn't want water anymore because two things were happening. They were getting low nutrition, which means the brain wasn't getting the food it needed to make good choices, but they were getting high stimulation, which meant their nervous system was out of control. And once they started getting excited, they wanted more excitement. And so they were all drinking the alcohol. And they said, let's take this experiment a step further. Let's remove the standard American diet and let's give them their normal laboratory rat chow. And within a short period of time, under their normal food, without excitotoxins and nutritious for the brain and the body, almost all of the rats went back to drinking only water. There was a number of them, though, that didn't make it back. They died of cirrhosis of the liver, alcoholism. And how do you think it goes for humans? And we wonder why our teenagers are out of control and why our prison population is exploding. It's because you are what you eat. Learn what you're eating. Get ahead of the game. Yes. Our hospitals, our prisons, our cemeteries are full of people if they had simply learned their diet. When I was in Yugoslavia, on the same day I was asked to speak at a convent because Mother Superior said their nuns are getting sick and they didn't know why. And they knew the Adventist pastor and they said, you know what, we've got Paul Volk coming to speak. Would you like us to bring him by? And she said, please, please bring him to the convent. That same day, I was at the highest maximum security prison in all of Europe. When you go to this prison, you're not coming out till you're dead. These are the worst mass murderers and rapists in all of Europe. They're sent here to die. They know they're not coming out. There's no more appeals. There's no more lawyers. It's over. You're going to die here. So they don't fool around with these guys because they don't care if you die today or next year. But you're going to die here. You're not coming out. So they arranged for me to come and speak there. And I could tell this was a serious place. I was met by 6 machine gun guards. They escorted me into the auditorium where I was going to be speaking. 3 of them flanked me on this side. 3 of them were on this side. And they put their finger on the trigger. They're ready to kill. Mess with us, you die. We don't play with you. We don't ask twice. You're dead. Get out of here. And so they said, okay, Paul, we're going to be releasing them now. If there's any kind of disturbance or disruption, all you do is lay on the floor because we shoot anything that's standing when we tell them to sit down. We shoot them. 6 machine guns. Whew. So they opened the doors and I took a deep breath and said a deep prayer and they started filing out into the seats. And I'm telling you, these guys looked bad. You would not want your sister going out with anybody like this. And boy, they were just, and I had over an hour with them. Within a half hour, tears were coming down their face. And they mobbed me afterwards. And they said, Paul, if we could have heard you when we were 12 years old, when we were 15 years old, we may not be here. But listen, this is my brother's phone number. This is my son's phone number. Please, you got to call them. You got to tell them to come to your lecture. They're coming here too, and then we don't want them to. But if you can tell them what you just told us, they won't have to come here. Wow, broke my heart. Big, rough, scarred up, mean guys crying because the light went on. This was my answer. And now I'm here to die. because I didn't know. And you know what makes me sad? We didn't tell them. We should have been visiting those prisons. We should have been visiting those halfway houses. Jesus and I, we visit the prisons together in Alaska, didn't we? That's right. If we could just give them the knowledge to set them free, they would not stop destroying themselves, but everyone around them. We live in a nation where we lock everything up and we insure everything and we protect everything because of these people that we didn't help. And we could have. And now they're attacking us. And maybe they should be, because we didn't help them. So it backfired on us. Yes. And Jesus and I know how happy those guys are to see us. They want to study. They want to learn. Yes. They're just right there with us. And then I go to the rescue mission also every month. And I speak to those guys. And I was lecturing there. One time I asked, I would like to have a 2-week stretch with the guys every day. They said, all right, we'll give you a special room. You can have a 2-week stretch. Because the director at that time was a Seventh-day Adventist. Do you remember that? At the rescue mission. So he said, Paul, you're a brother. I know what you got is good. You take the guys for 2 weeks. And I kid you not, the cook came up to me and he says, you got to start telling me what you're lecturing. And I said, what why? He says, we're throwing out all the cakes. We're throwing out all the pies. We don't make any coffee anymore. I said, really? And he goes, man, these guys we want more salads. We need some more fruit. We need some more. It's amazing how these guys got it in 2 weeks. They said, you heard what Paul said. They would get in line and say, put that back. You know what Paul said about that? Oh, yeah, that's right. Put it back. These people will listen if we'll go and talk to them. They're ready because they're desperate. They know they're in a place they don't want to be. They want out. And not only do they want out, we want them to stay out. And we give them the tools not only to get out, but to stay out. That's the critical point. Stay out. Don't repeat. All right. You may tell me at the end of this seminars, Paul, I'm just not convicted about that. I don't think I need to drink that much water. I don't think I need to get to bed by 9 or 9:30. I don't think I need to. Okay. I wasn't convicted on some of this stuff either when I first heard it. I said, come on, that can't be right. I grew up in a medical family. My mother taught me right. What do you guys know? She was a nurse. She's trained. She's trained by the AMA. And they've made mistakes, and they'll admit it. They'll admit, we did it. Thalidomide? They gave that to the pregnant women, and the babies were being born without arms and legs. That was AMA approved. I'm not trying to put down on them. They made some serious mistakes. And so we need to do our due diligence. And I compare them with what Scripture says and what God told us. Then I know whether it's good or bad. So anyway, if you tell me, Paul, I'm just not convicted on that. I said, that's fine. I wasn't convicted on some of this, but I'm going to ask you if you did what I did. Did you pray about this information? Well, I don't want to pray about it because if I pray, I may have to change, and I don't want to change. Well, do you study? The Bible says study, show yourself approved unto God, a man rightly dividing the word of truth. Well, look, I don't want to study because I may learn the truth, and then I'll have to change, and I don't want to change. Well, listen, do you talk to other people on both sides of the issue? I have talked personally with several federal meat inspectors. Every one of them is a vegetarian. I haven't met a meat-eating meat inspector yet. They're all vegetarians because they know what gets approved. And I can tell you what gets approved. And the FDA says this is fit for human consumption. You would have a fit if you knew what you were consuming. Trust me. Well, if you don't want to pray about it, you don't want to study about it, you don't want to talk to anybody about it, your problem isn't that you're not convicted. Your problem is you're not converted. That's the bottom line. You are not converted. Because a converted person is going to pray about everything they do. They're going to study, show themselves approved unto God, and they're free to talk to anybody. I talk to anybody about anything. I talk to Muslims. I have Mormon missionaries at my house all the time. I talk to people who are in the meat business. I've talked to strippers. I know personally strippers, people I know. Before I was a Christian, a buddy of mine was begging me to go to this strip bar. And I said, no, well, yeah, I wasn't even a Christian then. And I said, I don't want to do that. And just one time you have to come with me. I kid you not. I got George's phone number. You can call him right now and ask him if this is true. We walked into this strip bar. We sat down. First stripper comes out. She looks and she goes, "Hi, Paul." I'm going, oh no. George goes, you know her? I work with her at JCPenney's. I'm a management trainee. And after she did her little hoodoo dance, she put her robe on and she came and sat at our table. This is the first time George had a stripper sitting at his table. And he goes, I can't believe it. The stripper's sitting at our table. And you know her. I said, come on. Yes. But I talked to them. I let them know what my life is like now as it was before. So, and you know what? A converted person is going to be a convicted person. They're convicted about what they've learned because they prayed, they studied, and they listened to others. Wow, it's wonderful. It's amazing. All right, we need to move now into what time we got here? Noon o'clock, is that when we eat? All right, let's get started on the next color, purple one. And then we're going to talk about temperance. So, a lot of times, you remember the temperance leagues that they used to have in the 50s in the United States? These were women who were marching against alcoholism, prohibition, and they were called temperance leagues. Do you know Ellen White says we're to work with them? She said that. We support these people. They're doing the right thing, trying to get alcohol out of the hands of people. So, talk about temperance. Sometimes that's what people think about. But you know, the thing I think is most important that we need to be tempered about is the use of our time. Because that's what we're going to be held accountable for. What we did and what we neglected to do. Now, time is a very fair thing to judge people by because everybody gets 24/7, isn't that right? Whether you're young, old, male, female, you get 24 hours just like everybody else. And God is going to say, what are you going to do with that 24 hours that I gave you? Are you going to seek and save those who are lost, or are you going to satisfy and please yourself? You get to choose, but it's your 24 hours. Nobody can take that away from you. I won't allow Satan to take it. You have to choose what you want to do. So when we think about temperance, we need to find out how to spend our time most effectively. We don't want to just be effective now. We're living in the last days. We've got to step up to most effective. What's going to get the greatest good? And the first thing, foremost, absolutely, is you need to spend time alone with yourself and God. That is the number one use of your time because it will make the day most effective for everyone else that you meet. You need to spend time alone with yourself. We're told that hope, courage, faith, sympathy, and love promote and prolong your life. What, not surgery, not pills, not shots? No, not the jab. Hope, courage, faith, sympathy, love will promote and prolong your life. On the other side, she says grief, anxiety, discontent, remorse, guilt, distrust will break down your life forces. You see, it's not what happens to you that's so important. It's how you respond. That's what God is watching. How are you going to respond by a temptation in your life that God allowed? You know, no temptation can come unless God allows it. And if He allows it, that means He intends to help you through it. So He's watching how you're going to respond to what He allowed happen in your life. Just like Job. He allowed it, didn't he? The devil didn't do anything to Job that God did not allow because God wanted to prove and grow Job. That's why He allowed it. He wanted to grow him. That's what trials are for, to grow you. Not to break you down, to grow you. And if you turn to God, you'll grow. You must begin, first of all, by taking care of yourself, your time alone with God. Now we know that Jesus cleansed the temple twice, didn't he? He cleansed it the first time to begin his ministry, and he cleansed it the second time when he ended his ministry. If you don't feel like your ministry has really taken off, perhaps you need to stop and cleanse the temple. You see, Jesus cleansed the temple because the merchants that were in his temple were making money and taking advantage of the weaknesses and the sins of others, weren't they? And guess what? The merchants are back. They're in the temple. You know their names: Coca-Cola, Marlboro, Budweiser. Trust me, Bud, you're not going to be wiser. When I'm in Europe, they ask me, Mr. Volk, tell us, where is this Marlboro country? I said, you don't know where Marlboro country is? No, you're American. You know where it is. I said, I know where it is. They said, is it Colorado? I said, no. Is it California? I said, no. Tell us, Mr. Volk, where is this Marlboro country? It's 6 feet under. That's Marlboro country. 6 feet under. You want to go? No. So he cleansed it at the beginning of his temple. The beginning of his ministry. And he cleansed it at the end. And you want to be sure that when your ministry is done and your work is through, this temple is clean, as Jesus cleansed it. So, after you spend time alone for yourself, your next object is family and friends. Because you know on that judgment day, you know one of the questions Jesus is going to ask us? Where is your flock, your beautiful flock? That's your family and your friends. People who he brought into your life that you were to minister to, that you were to help. And you don't have a right to have family and friends. That's a privilege. And you should treat them as privileged people. Family and friends. Yes. And then the third step for your time is to spend it with others. They're the ones that don't smell like me. They don't look like me. They don't talk like me. I know what it's like to be another. I've been to 40 countries on 5 continents, and I stand out in some of those countries. I don't look like them at all. I can't talk like them. But I'm so grateful when people take the time to spend with me as an other. If you don't spend time with others and all you stay is with your little family and your little friends, your world becomes very small, very narrow, and very critical of anybody who's different than you. Because you're not used to that. You're uncomfortable. They're the others. They're not one of us. And it's easy to fall into that trap. In high school, we had what we all called our little cliques that we hung around with. They ate together in the cafeteria. And you know what I see about my brothers in the Adventist church? At potluck, I see guests and visitors sitting by themselves. And I go over there and sit with them. Yes. You look around when you go to potluck and don't sit with Bertha and Kathy and Jim and Don. You'll find the other that's by themselves the first time. Do you know they have proven that if a new person in the church doesn't make at least 5 friends in a year, they will leave the church because they don't feel they belong. They don't feel they have found a family, and they go looking for a family because people want to be loved. People want to be happy. We need to make sure they are. So spend time with them. You need to spend time with the different age groups also. All these age groups have special blessings available and special challenges. Spend time, stretch yourself with the different age groups. I admire the Asian culture for the respect that they have for their elders. They are highly revered and honored as an elder. Yes. Even myself, I've been in countries when I walk by, people will bow because the gray hair. So, spend time with the different age groups and see how it grows your own character. It grows you. Don't be afraid to say, I made a mistake. I don't know. I need help. I'm sorry. I love you. Powerful words. Use them often throughout the day. It will make your day better and other people as well. When people tell me, I don't have any time, I tell them, how much time do you have on the internet? How much time you have in that little box that's called a prison cell phone? Prison cell phone. Yes. I used to be a TV holic. I would wake up Tuesday morning, I knew it was on TV that night. You could say a day and a time, and I could tell you what I watched. That's how bad it was. These were my family. They were my friends who didn't care anything about me, didn't even know me. But yet I looked forward to seeing them every night. So if you're having trouble with the internet, your cell phone, write these Bible verses down. And before you get tempted to turn those things on, read those Bible verses out loud again and again and again. These Bible verses will help you. People say, well, I've got to stay in touch. I have to know the news. Oh, that's right. Biden's going to call you because of all the wisdom you have and all the information you know about. I'll tell you the truth. My father was in Secret Service, and he says Americans don't know a lot of what's going on. We don't tell them, and they'll never know. My father was very active during the Kennedy times, very critical. He told me one time his buddies were the bodyguards for Kennedy on a trip. They stopped at one of the air bases to get some more fuel, and they wanted to show off the base to Kennedy, and they were all walking around, and Kennedy saw one of these portable potties, and he says, I need to go in here and use the restroom real quick. And one of the bodyguards said, Mr. President, I have to look at that first. He said, it's just a porta potty. And he walked up to President Kennedy, nose to nose, and he said, Mr. President, you will stand down. That's what the FBI does, and those bodyguards. They will pull rank on the president because that's their job. And so he turned around and he walked 100 yards over to that porta potty. As soon as he opened the door, it exploded. They grabbed Kennedy, and the way they carry Kennedy, my dad says, is they shove his arms in like this. They lift him up because he has a bad back. He can't run. They shoved his arms in, they lifted him up, and they sprinted to Air Force One. Shot up those stairs, slammed those doors closed, and they were in the air in minutes. Because most people who try to assassinate are watching somewhere to see that it worked. And they have lots of ammunition to back it up in case it didn't. And obviously they saw they didn't get Kennedy, so they knew they had to get him out of there. Do you know there are 2 Air Force Ones that fly simultaneously? And the other one has a look-alike Kennedy going into that one, so they don't know which one is the president. Yeah, my dad has lots of information. Now, he couldn't tell me some of it because he'd have to kill me. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on that we don't know about. And that's why you don't need to feed yourself with the news, because especially today, it's not always the truth. You know better than that by now. So I watch once in a while, once or twice max at the week. Sometimes I go months, no news. Did you hear about this? And I said, no, I didn't, and I don't want to. Because you know why? What happens is when you hear the news and something is wrong, it's your instinct to want to help. And you can't help when they're dropping bombs in Slovenia. Nothing you can do about it. You're not a jet pilot. What are you going to do? What happens is you get frustrated because you want to help and you can't. The mother that killed her 6 kids, what are you going to do about it? You can't. So you're constantly feeding your brain with stuff that needs to be taken care of, and you can't do a thing about it. So why are you watching this and constantly tensing up your body and frustrating your body and your mind because you say, I want to help, I want to help. Fire going on in 3 states. What are you going to do about it? Oh, that's terrible. Quit feeding that stuff into your body. You know what news stands for, don't you? Do you know what those letters stand for? I was a journalist in college. Well, I wrote for the college paper. But it stands for North, East, West, and South. That's what they got the word from. NEWS. God didn't intend for you to pay attention to North, East, West, and South. He said, you take care of the plot I gave you. This is your first mission field. Don't be going all over here and trying to figure out the solution here like you know it, or anything else that's going on. Your mission field is right here. This should be your focus. If you keep filling yourself up with north, east, west, and south, you're going to pop, because you weren't designed to handle north, east, west, and south. You were designed to handle right where God placed you. That's where you belong. Now, it doesn't mean that you can not help or pray about it, but obsess yourself with it. That's not healthy. It's not healthy. We're realizing now what that does to the mind, and it breaks you down. Breaks you down because you're so frustrated wanting to help and you can't, because God didn't put you in a position to do that. Is that right? All right, we're getting right up to noon o'clock, so we're going to stop right here and we'll pick up with how to eliminate stress and depression in our next segment. Let's pray. Father in heaven, we want to thank you so much for all this information, that we can be healthy, happy, and holy for heaven. In Jesus' name, amen. One of the best books that you can read or give to somebody with stress or depression is Thoughts from the Mount of Blessing. It's a little book that Ellen White wrote. It's a commentary on the Beatitudes. You know Jesus' Sermon on the Mount in Matthew chapter 5, blessed are the poor in spirit, and so on. That is the best book that you can read on stress. I'm going to tell you, remember, you weren't here before. You don't call out. Otherwise, we get distracted. All right? Thoughts from the Mount of Blessing. We call it TMB in theology world. TMB, Thoughts from the Mount of Blessing. All right. And remember, if you have any questions or comments, please see me afterwards. Don't interrupt the class. Please. Thank you. That's just courtesy to everybody else who came, not to hear what you had to say, but to get this information. So in all kindness, I'm asking you to respect the other people as well. One of the world's experts on stress is a French-Canadian. His name is Dr. Hans Selye. Dr. Selye has written a number of books on stress and depression, and one of them was so outstanding, it was translated into other languages, including English, and it's called Stress Without Distress. And when I heard about that book, I went to the library to pick it up, because you know medical books cost hundreds of dollars, and this missionary doesn't have that. So I go to the library and I check them out. My library in Anchorage is an amazing library. If there's any book anywhere that I want, they will get it for me. They'll say, this one's in the New York library, it's in the Chicago library, we'll get it. And I don't even have to pay postage. My library in Anchorage gets it for me. So if I see something and I'll go down there, they say, where is this at? And they said, this will look right here. Yep, we got it right here. It'll be here in a week. And they fly it up to me, and then I read it. What I have to be careful about is I keep a notepad here and don't write in the book, because I have a habit of underlining and marking and writing in the columns of my books. But this one here, I don't want to spend $200 to replace it. So I got the book, Stress Without Distress. And although Dr. Selye isn't a Christian, he said if you will do 3 things, you can virtually eliminate all the stress in your life. What he didn't know, all 3 are in the Bible. They're in the Bible. And I got so excited when I read that book, and I realized, wow. Because, you know, stress and depression is the #1 prescribed medication in North America, probably the whole world after COVID, because COVID has really done a number on us. That was such an incredible move by Satan, and most of us fell for it. We fell for it, and I'm ashamed to say that. But Dr. Selye said 3 things. So we'll start with the first one until we got a little more time. He said one of the things that you need to do is to be thankful. To be thankful. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verses 16 through 18 says, rejoice always, pray without ceasing, in everything give thanks, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. We're to be thankful. But, we like to complain, don't we? Oh, yes, we do. We complain about the weather. We complain about politics. There's plenty to complain about there. We complain about the neighborhood. We complain about the people we work with, our relatives. On and on it goes. Yeah. How many of you ladies, if your husband gave you a long-stemmed rose, would you show that to people and say, look what my husband gave me, 47 thorns. They're sharp. They hurt. They've already drawn blood. Is that what we talk about? No, it isn't. We talk about the one rose. Now, to be sure, there's going to be a lot of thorns in your life. And if you focus on the thorns, you're going to miss all the beauty, all the aroma of the rose. And that one rose is Jesus. We're told gratitude, rejoicing, benevolence, trusting in God's love and care are health's greatest safeguard. Not injections, not surgery, not pills, lotions, potions, gratitude, rejoicing, benevolence, trusting in God's love and care, the greatest safeguard for your health. Very simple. Number 2, Dr. Selye said, you need to help others. You're getting the focus off of you and on to someone else. And when you help somebody else, God reaches down and helps you because you're valuable to Him. You're a person who wants to help others, and that's what He desperately needs. People who will pray, who will study, and do what they can to help others. So the more knowledge I have, I'm trained in first aid. I'm trained in lifeguard. I'm trained in all of these. In case an emergency comes, I have some skills to call on. And they tell you, you may not use this for years, but they said what we have always discovered is during the crisis, the brain flashes back exactly what you need to do to help that drowning person, what you need to do. We had a big car pileup outside of Anchorage. And as soon as we realized we were going up to camp meeting or something like that, there were 4 or 5 of us in each car. There were 3 or 4 cars, big caravan of us going up there. Suddenly we realized a big pileup had just occurred and people were jumping out of their cars. And we got out of our cars and we sprinted into the accident. Cars piled up everywhere. I headed to the first truck by myself. Guy was upside down. His truck was upside down. And I said, "Can you breathe?" He said, "Yes." "Are you in any pain?" "No." "Are you aware of any blood?" "No." I said, "You're okay right now. I promise you I will be back. I need to find more emergency situations right now." I was trained by that by my mother because where we lived in Anchorage, we had the same situation. There was a curve that we lived on, and these hot-shot teenagers would like to whiz around that, and I would say at least every 2 months there was a big pileup. And we knew exactly what to do. Our house was the second house in from that curve. We knew exactly what to do. My mother didn't have a first aid kit. She had a cabinet. And she would grab the bandages, grab the gauzes, we'd grab the blankets, and we would sprint to the accident. And my mother was commander-in-chief. She said, "Go over there, put some pressure on that bleeding, get over there, tip that person's head back, get this person over here, straighten that leg out." And I was just a little kid, 11 years old, and I would watch all this. And my mother was just as cool as ice when she would give directions. "Over here, over that, take care of this. Let me do that. You don't have enough training." And she would do something. We get back to the house and she'd go, "Oh, man." And I said, "Mom, you're cool as ice." She says, "I am in a crisis. That's my training." But she says, "After it's over." Then I realized, do you realize how close that person was to death? Do you realize that person there, in the next 5 minutes, they would have been dead? And so I'm going, wow, didn't know that. So anyway, I had inherited that from my mother. And so that's why I got all the training that I did in college, in lifeguard, first aid, safety, all of this stuff, is because I want to be useful. And if I don't have any training, I can't help you. But if I've got the training, I know how to do the Heimlich maneuver. I know how to do all of these things that are going to be helpful. Unless there's a physician there, I will jump to the occasion. And boy, when we saw that pile up there, it was just brilliant because we had a couple of nurses who were in our church. And boy, we would call on them, "Hey, I need you over here. This looks bad." But we would you have to evaluate, assess first, who's in the most critical position and then who you can help later on. But anyway, help others. Matthew 25 verse 40 says, When you have done it unto one of the least of these, you've done it to me. You've done it to Jesus. Jesus says, that was me that you gave CPR to. That was me that you pulled out of the drowning lake. That was me. Wow. I did it to Jesus. Because you did it to his kid. You did it to his child. And when you do it, as you know, parents know, they've done it for your child. They did it for you. You know that. Helping others. The third thing Dr. Selye says to do is to have meaningful work. Meaningful work. That means work that you have both the ability and the desire to do. Both have to be in place. If you don't have the ability, go get to trade school, go into the military, go to the university, whatever you need to do. We're ready? All right, let me finish this thought then. Okay. But you have to have the ability and the desire. One of my professors in college said something that really stuck with me, Dr. Floyd Brzee at Union College. He said, if you love your work so much that you would do it for nothing, you found the right job. And my work is totally a faith ministry. I never charge for my programs. I just take up a free will offering. My DVDs that are available, the guy who used to duplicate all my DVDs, I told him if they only have $1, you send them the DVDs, but you don't send them 10 sets. But anything that I have, I want to be available to people. So I think I found the right job because I love my work so much, I would do it for nothing. And that's basically what I do. It's totally on faith. Meaningful work. I can remember growing up listening to adults say how much they hated Monday morning and they couldn't wait until Friday. And as a child, I was a very precocious kid. My parents called me the why kid because I was always asking why. Why? And I was always very observant. It's probably from my father being the spy. You know, you got to be very observant and not miss a clue when you're spying. So I was very observant. And I thought, I don't think this growing up is going to be a good thing because apparently something's going on 5 days a week that's not fun. And there's only 2 days a week to play. I think I'm going to stay a child. This growing up isn't going to be good. And that's because most people don't really love their work. They don't really love their work. You want to be sure you love your work, then you know you're where God has called you to be. If you love your work, make sure that what you're doing makes this world a better place because you're here. All right? When I go to the grocery stores, I will actually observe the stock boy loading up the shelves, and I'll watch him for a few minutes to see if he's a sloppy job or a good job. And when he does a good job, I will walk up to him and I'm saying, you know, this shelf looks really great. I want to thank you for making it this way for us shoppers. And you know, he'll probably remember that compliment for another month. The manager, he gets all of his bonuses, he gets all the praises and stuff like that. But it's the stock boy who makes him look good. I go outside a building and I see somebody sweeping. I'll watch them for a few moments. And if they're real careful and they're getting it good, I will walk up to them and I said, you know, this sidewalk is beautiful. Thank you for making it so nice for us to walk on. And they're just shocked. They just look at you. Good job. Keep it up. You've got a great future. How long did that take? A few minutes. How much did it cost me? Nothing. Just my time. And that's what people need, is your time. Give them your time. Yeah. Help others. All right. I'm going to fill in the details on this now after we have our meal because you stay awake better at story time. So this might be just providential that you're going to get 2 stories when you come back. So let's pray for the food and I get to go first. All right. Are you ready? No. Actually, I'm not going to be eating because I have to talk right after this and it's not easy to talk on a full stomach like singing on a full stomach. You just don't do it. So let's pray. Father in heaven, thank you so much for this food. And Lord, help us to learn more and more how to enjoy this more natural, simple food that you've provided for us. Thank you for those who labored to put it together. And thank you for blessing it. In Jesus' name, amen.